One challenge that we face as mentors is how to teach using principle. I recently read in Barzan's book, Teacher in America, that the only thing we're teaching anybody is a principle. And that's a pretty powerful statement. He follows it with this example. So just think about what a principle is a statement of truth that is unchanging. So this is what he goes on to say about principle. Naturally, principles involve facts, and some facts must be learned bare because they do not rest on any principle. The capital of Alaska is Juneau, and so far as I know, that is all there is to it. But a European child ought not to learn that Washington is the capital of the United States without fixing firmly in his mind the relation between city and the man who led his countrymen to freedom. That will be missing an association, which is the germ of a principle. And I like that because it really helps us understand why in the Vanguard Method it's so important to remember that concept of core and crust ideas. We have the core of our students, which involves the implementation of principles and into their heart and educating their heart. We have the crust, which are all those seemingly superficial skills that we use in order to express our cores and to use our cores. But they should never be taught independent of that. That's why it's so important to use the 7-month method, particularly to make sure you're focusing on a principle every month. I'd like to share just an example of how that can look by using what we did this morning for devotional for our own little Vanguard at home. So what we did is, over here, we're talking about the principle of, we're on our second month. And so the second month in the Vanguard Method is to talk about freedom, what limits our freedom. I'm going to back up a little bit and review just quickly what we did for our first month. So this morning, this is how I taught my children. Here we have us talking about last month and happiness. And we discussed diligence is a key to happiness. That's the principle that we studied and challenged and analyzed last month. And so we determined that yes, diligence does make us happy. Then we're talking about freedom this month. And our principle for this month is integrity is essential to freedom. So this is our principle. Integrity is essential to freedom. So first we started by brainstorming what is integrity, and part of their Vanguard assignments was to do a word study on what integrity means. And so they already had kind of a foundation on what integrity means, according to the 1828 dictionary and scriptural sources. You know, what is the meaning of integrity? So then as we talked about that, then what I did is I tied in, and then for our devotional, some of the emotional aspects by telling stories. We're also focusing on the medieval time period this year, and so I drew an example from that time period to increase those connections. Remember those associations, they talked about principles? Increase those association connections to provide context for our learning. So then I shared with them from the Book of Virtues a story of For Want of a Horseshoe Nail. And just briefly, it's a legend about King Richard III, who, when getting ready to go into battle, his steward went to the blacksmith and insisted that he hurry and get the king's horse ready. Well, the blacksmith said, I don't have enough iron right now, it's going to take some time. But the groom said impatiently, no, we've got to go with what we've got. And so he was able to shoe all of the horse's 4 hooves, except for one, he needed 2 or 3 more nails. The groom insisted they needed it right then, and the blacksmith, without any guarantee, says, well, here you go, that's as good as I can't promise anything. The groom rushed the horse off to the king. The king was charging back and forth across the field. He saw part of his army was starting to turn away. They were discouraged. And of course, the king's role is to go and bring them all together so they can fight effectively. And as he did it, his horse stumbled as it lost his horseshoe. He fell to the ground. His horse ran away, and the battle was lost, and he lost the throne of England. We talked about integrity, how the lack of integrity on the fact of either the groom or the blacksmith, and we talked about what that was, affected the freedom. We then went and shared, I shared with them the story of the charge of the Light Brigade. And I'm just going to read this because I want you to think about what integrity means within this context. Half a league, half a league, half a league onward, all in the valley of death rode the 600. Forward the Light Brigade, charge for the guns, he said, into the valley of death rode the 600. Forward the light brigade! Was there a man dismayed? Not though the soldier knew someone had blundered. Theirs not to make reply, theirs not to reason why, theirs but to do and die. Into the valley of death rode the 600. Cannon to the right of them, cannon to the left of them, cannon in front of them, volleyed and thundered, stormed at with shot and shell. Boldly they rolled, and well, into the jaws of death, into the mouth of hell rode the 600. Flashed all their sabers bare, flashed as they turned in air, sabering the gunners there, charging an army while all the world wondered, plunged in the battery smoke. Right through the line they broke, Cossack and Russian reeled from the saber stroke, shattered and sundered. Then they rode back, but not the 600. Cannon to the right of them, cannon to the left of them, cannon behind them, volleyed and thundered, stormed at with shot and shell, while horse and hero fell. They that fought so well came through the jaws of death, back from the mouth of hell. All that was left of them, left of the 600. When can their glory fade? Oh, the wild charge they made. All the world wondered. Honor the charge they made. Honor the light brigade. Noble 600. So then we were able to talk about the integrity of those troops and fighting, even when it seemed bleak. And I asked the youth and my kids to think about how that integrity affected their freedom. They had freedom of conscience. They had freedom to know that they had done what they were called upon to do. And what does that look like in their own lives? Being true to things even when it's hard, even when you don't see the fruit of it. I closed with this poem, and we had a discussion through all this, and I closed with a poem called The Bridge Builder. And so again, integrity towards what is true within you. And this was great because in the charge of the Light Brigade, you sense this principle that it was essential that if they have integrity as soldiers to their leaders, then the leaders will be able to help them to be where they need to be, even when there's mistakes made, because then they will have done what they needed to do. But then I took it a little bit deeper and I said, so what if the mark you leave is not seen in this life? What if what you do is not registered and recognized in this life? Do you still have the integrity to follow what is right within you? We use the example of the prophet Isaiah, who was probably little known in his time. As far as you can tell within the context of the scriptures, everyone was being destroyed around him and nobody listened. But he's the most quoted prophet, not only by Jesus Christ, but by so many other people in the scriptures. His words are the ones that are quoted. He wrote even when he didn't see his audience. And he wrote amazing things that have really changed and comforted millions of people. And so I close with that, as I had hopefully my youth thinking about what God was calling them to do as I read this poem to them. An old man going a lone highway came at the evening, cold and gray, to a chasm vast and deep and wide, through which was flowing a sullen tide. The old man crossed in the twilight dim, the sullen stream had no fears for him. But he turned when safe on the other side, and built a bridge to span the tide. Old man, said a fellow pilgrim near, you're wasting strength with building here. Your journey will end with the ending day. You never again must pass this way. You've crossed the chasm deep and wide. Why build you the bridge at eventide? The builder lifted his old grey head. Good friend, in the path I have come, he said, there followeth after me today a youth whose feet must pass this way. This chasm that has been notched to me, to that fair-haired youth may a pitfall be. He too must cross in the twilight dim. Good friend, I am building this bridge for him. So I challenge you to have integrity to what God wants you to do, and see the freedom that will unfold from that. I challenge my youth to, and I could see something change within them because it became part of them. They made that association. Principles are powerful. Yes, we need to learn facts, but we need to always tie them to principle to make their learning more effective. Good luck.